My name is Alia. It's my pleasure to introduce Miss Elisa Lopez. Miss Lopez leads admissions, outreach, and pathway programs and financial aid for the David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA, where she has been actively involved in holistic review processes and applicant selection. She is also involved in the American Association of Colleges, AMC, where she has served on preview-related working groups, the Pre-Med Core Competencies Working Group, and the Summer Health Professions Education Program grant through the AMC. Prior to her work at UCLA, Elisa served as Executive Director of Full-Time Recruitment at Pepperdine University's Graziado's Business School, where she directed worldwide market development, student recruitment, and enrollment management for the full-time MBA and specialized master's programs. Elisa holds a master's in international management degree and a bachelor from Thunderbird School of Global Management, a Bachelor of Arts in French, and a Bachelor of Science in Business from West Virginia University. Thank you for joining us today with Ms. Lopez.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I want to welcome everyone that's here this evening, and I look forward to your questions. But before we get started with that, I wanted to share some information about the admissions process, about how to get prepared for medical school. And I know some of you, or probably many of you, are early in your bachelor's programs or in community colleges. And so you have time available to work on things. And so we'll talk about that a bit this evening. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, and hopefully you can all see this. Great. All right, so yes, we're going to talk about some insider tips and things that can help you to stand out as you prepare for medical school and in the application process. So I do work with admissions, so I'll share a bit with you here this evening. As we get started, though, just wanted to share a quick QR code. So if you are interested in receiving additional information from the David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA related to preparation for medical school and the resources available, you can feel free to scan this. And I'll show this again at the end of the presentation. All right, so I'll go ahead and get started. And the first thing I wanted to say to all of you is that there's a lot of information out there about how to get prepared for medical school, about how to prepare an application, write your personal statement, and so many other things. It can be confusing with so many different sources out there. But I wanted to remind all of you that you should always be your primary source for information, because your application that you will prepare, whether sooner or later, it all begins with you. You know, the things that you've done, the accomplishments you've achieved, the things you've overcome, your learning, and much, much more. So as you think about it, you'll want to make sure that you can prepare yourself to be the most well-rounded and experienced applicant that can lead you to be one of the best physicians going forward. I've also included here some dates for the application process. This is for the current admissions cycle. So for those of you who may be a few years out from even beginning your application to medical school, these are what the dates often look like each year. So typically the national application system, which goes to medical schools across the country, will open the application May 1st each year. And then you have the opportunity to actually work on it for a bit. You'll be able to submit the application toward the end of May or early June, and then schools will begin closing their deadlines in the fall for the application. So you have a little bit of time to get it in, but there are several parts to it. For our school at UCLA, our deadline is typically October 1st or thereabouts each year. Now, I want to share with you a bit about what happens after you click the submit button on your medical school application. So we know that there's a lot that packs into before you even begin your application. But I thought by working backwards today, kind of looking at what schools are looking for, and then we can back that up into the things that you would want to take on and do now will help you prepare best for putting a successful foot forward for medical school. Now, one of the first things to think about is, of course, where you want to apply to medical school. And you don't have to do this until close to the time when you begin applying. But medical schools will look at applications with the lens of their mission. So at our school, we have a distinct mission, and we receive over 10,000 applications annually for just 175 spots in the incoming class each year. So as you can see, it's a pretty competitive process, and this will be similar at other medical schools around the country as well. So again, it is essential to do your utmost in preparing for the field. But schools, in the end, the way they're looking at applications, they have their mission close to their heart, as they review applications. And another thing to note is that applications are not just reviewed once by a school, they're reviewed multiple times through screening and interviews and admissions committees and those types of things. And again, schools will be looking for different things. At our school, at UCLA, we're looking for applicants that fit well with our mission, which is listed here, and also those that fit well with our training philosophy, which is to develop the next generation of outstanding physicians and those that have a commitment to something more, such as leadership, advocacy, science, and much, much more. And so that fits with our mission, and that's how applications are reviewed. Now, to kind of further this, as I mentioned, we're not only looking to admit students who are going to be physicians, but those that are going to be outstanding physicians. And so that ties into all of your pre-preparations. And folks that want to do something beyond just being an outstanding physician, like tying that into also becoming a scientist or researcher, being a community advocate, an activist, an educator, many, many other things. And so as we go through this presentation, feel free to type in chat some of the things that you're very interested in addition to the field of medicine, that might, further enhance your application and some places where you're spending your time currently. I'm going to go ahead and share a brief video, though, too, that talks about medical school for just a moment here. All right, so that video kind of encapsulates medical school. You probably noticed there's food involved, there's some dancing involved, there's a lot of smiles. there's a lot of studying too, of course, but medical school is an incredible experience. And we believe in each and every one of you that you'll succeed in making it to your dreams and going to medical school and, of course, beyond. All right. So some other things that schools are looking at. And this is kind of some national things that medical schools look at, and that is holistic review. Now, you may be familiar with holistic review. For medical schools, it's a way of assessing the whole application and everything in it. So it takes a look at your experiences that you highlight in your application. And these are the things you're probably working on now and will continue to do so in the years to come before you apply to medical school. But experiences such as, maybe how COVID impacted you, your research experience, healthcare experience, and those types of things. It also takes a look at your attributes. So maybe your geography, where you grew up, your maturity, your fields of interest, and much more. And then also metrics are important. And of course, your MCAT, GPA, grade trends, all of those things tie into it. So these are things that schools are looking for as well. Now, kind of, summing it all up here in terms of the process, schools will have an admissions process similar to this. This is the process that we use at UCLA, which is we have a rolling admissions process, which means you can submit your application at any time while the application is open, and you'll receive equal consideration along that. There are some schools, however, that don't have a rolling admissions process, which means you would want to submit in the time frame that they indicate. We, throughout a rolling process are giving consistent mission-related consideration at each stage of the process and to every application. And there are distinct contributors at every stage of the process. Now, what does the process look like? Again, all of this after you press submit on your application. So we do a primary screening when your application comes in, a secondary screening after that with your institutional application and all of the different components of your application. After that, and actually between the primary and the secondary screen, certain applicants are selected to get the secondary screening. After that, some applicants are then selected to receive an admissions interview. And then those are considered by our admissions committee. After that, decisions are issued, offer letters and those types of things, and then a wait list is formed. So this is kind of how the process goes. It is a long process, rather complex process, but we feel very confident that we are reviewing each application extensively and with holistic review. Okay, so that's a bit of background here. Now, you may be thinking at this point, how to get started in preparing. How do you set yourself up for success in the process? As we all know, it does take, some extensive preparations and some years to make sure that you have all of the qualifications necessary to succeed in entering medical school. So the first place to start is here, and that is, why are you choosing medicine as a career? This is the most basic question, probably the most important question. But one of the types of things that on the application sometimes isn't well fleshed out and can lead to, admissions folks scratching their heads and trying to decipher why in your application. And you don't want to be in that position. So You'll want to think about this first, and this is something you can actually start thinking about today. Some of you may know, for others, it may not be so clear, but you really want to define why this is your field of choice. And if it's your field of choice, why do you want to become a physician? Could you accomplish the same thing, maybe in public health, in nursing, in many other fields that are associated with healthcare. So you want to define that specifically and set yourself on the right path to begin with. And then hone this as you go along, because this will be really the crux of your personal statement when you do apply to medical school. All right. Now, you can get some help right off the bat here from the American Association of Medical Colleges. Medical schools from across the country have gotten together to determine some core competencies that all medical schools are looking for in applicants to their schools. I wouldn't necessarily call it a cheat sheet, but it's sort of a cheat sheet because you can, if you look up this publication, if you just do a Google search online, you'll be able to find it. It's called The Anatomy of an Applicant. And it gives a lot of information about preparing to go to medical school. And it even has a bit of a worksheet at the back. So you can work through the core competencies that are listed. Again, all medical schools are looking for these competencies in medical school applicants. So if you take a look at each of these, and I've just listed out some different areas here that are included in that, you can work on over the coming years, how you demonstrate empathy, for example, commitment, your ethics, and think of examples, or maybe pursue opportunities where you can demonstrate these types of competencies and talk about them later through the activities and involvements that you're engaged in. So this is an incredible resource, and I always recommend it to everyone. Now, each school will also have their own competencies and specifics for what they're looking for. These are the competencies for our medical school at UCLA, and they differ from other schools. So overall, at our medical school, we believe that college, not only prepares students for medical school, but also provides opportunities for students to gain creative and intellectual growth, foster learning, gain maturity, and many other types of things. So we don't have specific courses or specific numbers of courses or specific numbers of years of different types of courses that you need to take. What we're looking for is that you demonstrate that you have competency through your academics and your academic performance in the things here in the blue box. And all of this is available on our website. Some schools will have specifics that you need to complete, but for our school, we're looking for general competencies in these different areas, particularly in STEM, but also in the humanities. So for some of you that may be non-traditional applicants, no worries there as well. You will need to make sure that you can demonstrate your competency in these types of areas, but you don't have to do it in the traditional ways. Okay. So next, let's talk about some more specific things that we look for in the application as it's being considered. There's really 4 key things beyond our mission that we're looking for. Academic achievement is one of them. And so, that would involve your grades, your MCAT, any academic awards you may have achieved, and that type of thing. Medical school curricula are really intense and rigorous. Some people say it's drinking from a fire hose when you enter medical school. So schools want to make sure that you can handle it. And the best way to do that is how you've performed already on these other academic achievement metrics. So, uh, if you have a non-traditional background, you can take a look at these things. You can also prepare, separately by taking additional classes, post-bacs, and things like that as well to make sure that you can demonstrate your academic achievement. Now, the second item here is professional experience. So overall, we're looking for applicants that know and love what they're getting into by entering the field, and that you've had exposure to the field in a clinical, research, or patient care setting. We want to make sure that that you've tried it, that you've seen it, that you like it, that this is something you want to do more of, and that you can demonstrate that. And so these are all areas that you'll want to make sure you have some pretty good experience in before you plan to apply to medical school. Now, number 3 is service and advocacy. And as you know, medicine is a field that's dedicated to serving those in need and helping those that are the most vulnerable. So demonstrating your interest in doing that and your care for others is also critical. So you'll want to take time now and in the coming years to gain that experience as well, learn from it, and be able to talk about it in your application. And then finally, your interpersonal skills and validation of your accomplishments and involvements is also a critical part of the application. And that comes out in letters of recommendation that you'll need to provide, your personal statement, your admissions interview, situational judgment tests like the preview exam or Casper and others. This is important because this is your opportunity really to detail and tell your story and to have others, like through the letters of recommendation, validate what you're saying and kind of bolster that as well. Now, with all of that in mind, you may think, well, yep, I can get a semester of this here and a semester of that there, and I should be all set. And generally speaking, that may give you lots of experience. However, I did mention that it's a competitive field, right? It is competitive to get into medical school. And so it's important to try to consider these degrees of preparation. Now, you can take your preparation from just maybe average preparation to really outstanding preparation and really set yourself up for success by doing some of these things here. So I've given some examples for each of these 4 categories I was just talking about. The first category being academics, your courses, your MCAT, and those types of things. So certainly demonstrating that you can earn good grades is a first step, but you can really take that to the next level in your preparations by developing good relationships with your faculty, or maybe faculty that you kind of resonate with. Get to know them because they could later become outstanding letter writers for you for your letters of recommendation. And sometimes knowing faculty can lead to other opportunities like research, laboratory opportunities, and other things too. So, and then finally, you can really kind of amp up your performance and success in this area by earning honors and distinctions academically. So again, not just going for the good grades, but going beyond that will make a big difference in the application that you submit. Same thing with clinical experiences. Now, you know, many people start out with shadowing, and shadowing is required by many medical schools. Our school doesn't require it, but it is helpful experience. But when you think about it, shadowing gives you the experience of understanding what a clinical environment is all about, but you really don't have any opportunities to contribute or do anything other than observe, right? In that kind of an experience. So you can take that to the next level by seeking out opportunities to actually work with patients. Um, and then, if you can go beyond that and make independent contributions to patient care, you may need to do this through paid work experience in a clinical setting or in other ways where you could actually work directly with patients and make a greater level of difference. I know some people, pursue opportunities to become an EMT or again to seek out more leadership oriented volunteer activities and those types of things to increase their level of impact and contribution to patients in a patient care setting. So that again is a great way to make your application really stand out. Now, in talking about service and community service, similar to the others, you can demonstrate your passion and care for others, but by taking it a step further and maybe rising to leadership in service, um, maybe you are leading a club. Maybe you are leading a volunteer activity in your community or proposing a volunteer activity project and then moving forward with that or training others. Your ability to make a deeper impact and a more long-standing impact and an impact where you're learning a lot from it. All of that, again, will really make your application more outstanding. And then finally, research. So while research experience can be difficult, if you're able to get experience with research, please do. You can volunteer in research projects or in a lab. Certainly, if you get the opportunity to rise to a leadership position, and that could be just training other student volunteers, kind of as a volunteer lead. But if you can take that forward even to getting a publication or doing a presentation on the research or even a poster session, that takes your research to the next level. And then finally, doing independent research or being allowed to do your own research study for a lab or a piece of a study also really sets you apart. So while it's very difficult for anyone to do the things that I've indicated here in red for all these different areas, even if you're able to do this in any one or two or three of these areas, it will make a significant difference. So now if you're wondering, what can I do today? What can I do this fall semester? What can I do next semester to kind of really move myself forward in preparations for eventually applying to medical school? These are the things to focus on. And moving yourself closer and closer to these things in red and really making an impact in everything you do. You may not be able to take on everything that you want to because it requires much more time and dedication to do these things in red. But your level of impact and these degrees of preparation will really help you to move forward and prepare very successfully versus just on an average level, as you go through the coming years. So, in summary, I've talked a lot about these various things, but to summarize, students who are already committed to their road to making a lifelong impact and demonstrate their commitment through their preparation are the ones that are often very successful in the medical school application process. So you'll want to consider that when you think about, how long to stay with a volunteer activity or a work activity, or whether to get a certification in something and those types of things. All right. So to kind of wrap things up, as you go along, you may be in this position. You may need a little bit of help. We all do. It's very hard to do this kind of preparation over the years. If you're on your own, right, you can achieve much more if you're in a community together. And I would say this community right here that you're in is phenomenal and can help you be amongst other like-minded people all working together on this. But I wanted to share some things for at our school as well. So we do have a website for pre-medical students that you're welcome to visit. If you look up the David Geffen School of Medicine and pre-health opportunities, we have some web pages there where we talk about our various outreach events where you can meet up with us. We have a pre-health guidance center, which I'll talk about on the next slide. We also offer pathway programs, which are application-based programs for free that you can apply to take part in that really help amp up your preparation for the field and your exploration of it as well. And then we have additional speaker series that we do. Now, this is another QR code. This is for our pre-health guidance center where we offer free virtual and individual one-on-one appointments. These are offered pretty much 5 days a week throughout the year. So you can always go to the website and just sign up for a one-on-one appointment to sort of see where you're at and get some advice and resources on things that you can do to move forward in all your plans. All right. And then to wrap things up, I'm just sharing this again, just for those of you that want to get our email newsletter going forward. You can scan that. All right. So I will turn it back over to the team here, and I'll stop sharing screen.
All righty. So the first question everybody's asking is, what is the GPA and the MCAT, which that information is posted in the MSAR, but people are asking if they have a low GPA and a high MCAT, how does that impact their process?
Yeah, it's a common question. And so I hear you all on that. I understand. Yes, MSAR is going to be the best source of information for that type of thing. And you can compare apples to apples and look at a variety of medical schools and see, in terms of those that are admitted, kind of what types of MCAT and GPA they offer. For our school, we don't have MCAT and GPA cutoffs because, again, we're looking for folks that have good preparation and good background to handle the rigors of medical school, but we understand that can be achieved in many ways. Now, to the question of, does MCAT and GPA do they kind of support each other? They all fall under your academics. So, well, we understand that sometimes people may not be a good test taker, but may do great academically. So that is all factored into our admissions consideration.
Is being from Los Angeles an advantage or disadvantage to get into UCLA?
Um, Also a common question. We actually do not look at location, where applicants are from when they apply. So that's not a part of our of our consideration. So whether you're from Los Angeles or not, and I'll even say it, even if you're a UCLA graduate, it's not factored into consideration. So there is equal consideration for everyone.
Does the UC Berkeley GPA weigh differently than other schools?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's all considered equally and the same.
Some students would like to know if, or what's the difference between like clinical volunteering and clinical experience, and if there's like a minimum amount of hours that they need to complete for UCLA.
Right, right. So this is one thing I would say. It's probably best not to look at it in terms of hours, at least for our school, because we're not looking for a specific number of hours. Again, we're using holistic review. So everything is considered in the application. The best rule of thumb to use in terms of clinical experience or other experiences is how much you are learning and the impact that you're making. If you have been doing, let's say, volunteer work for some time, if you've been doing it for a year or two, or maybe you've been president of a club and, well, now you've rotated off and someone else is president, and you're wondering, should I still stay in this club and keep doing this? Ask yourself, are you learning? Is there a lot more you can learn, or has it kind of gotten a bit dry? If that's the case, move on. So in everything that you're doing, you want to maximize your learning. That's what you'll be speaking about in the application. And that's going to be the best use of your time in preparing yourself for medical school.
Another interesting one that I found was, do you accept international students or students who receive a bachelor's from a different country?
Great question. So our admission policy is such that we accept US citizens, permanent residents, those who are DACA recipients, and California residents. So if you would require an F1 or J1 or another type of visa, then that would not meet our eligibility criteria. Now, if you have a bachelor's degree from another country, we do accept bachelor's degrees from Canada or the US, or other degrees as well, master's degrees and such. So if your bachelor's is from another country, but you've earned a master's or even a PhD in the US or Canada, you would certainly be eligible to apply.
Some people want to know that they did really bad at first year college, but they've improved. Is that going to impact them if their GPA has had a steady growth?
Yeah. Again, yeah, with a focus on learning, right? You wouldn't be alone if you struggled a bit in your first year of college. Many people do. And I mean, even to the extent of if you failed a class or got close to failing a class, that happens. And certainly I think medical schools understand that. Our school understands that. The most important thing is that you can demonstrate that you learned from it and you went back and you were able to achieve after that. So if you have an upward trajectory in your GPA, that definitely stands out and demonstrates that you've got what it takes to handle the rigor of medical school and the curriculum there. Now, also knowing that the more difficult classes often are in the later years of your bachelor's program. Again, if you can perform very well there, that definitely showcases your ability, academically.
There is an applicant for reapplicants. This question is for them. So this student has applied 3 times in the med school application process that they're kind of applying to UCLA. So how does the admissions committee treat reapplicants? Do they treat them differently? And how many times do you think reapplying is too much?
Yeah. Well, I would say, it wouldn't be uncommon for folks to apply to medical school and maybe it, unsuccessfully, definitely that first time for sure. The key thing with reapplying is you want to make sure that you have a significantly enhanced application the next time you apply. Our school doesn't look at whether you're a reapplicant or a first-time applicant. It's just not a part of our review process. But with that said, if you haven't changed things on your application, if you don't have additional significant experience or other things like that to add to your application, then likely it may be a similar outcome. So I would take some time to really reevaluate those things before applying again.
There was another question for non-traditional applicants. This individual asked if you have any tips or recommendations for non-traditional applicants who are looking to change career paths.
Yeah. Our school does actually, in our incoming classes, we tend to have a very healthy percentage of non-traditional students. Sometimes, well, maybe oftentimes, they are folks that are kind of switching careers, sometimes not. It will come down to, I think, how you can, one, answer that question, why do you want to become a physician? Why do you want to pursue the field of medicine? If you're able to articulate that clearly and well and demonstrate your interest through the things you've been involved in, you can even leverage the experience that you already have, perhaps from another career, and the learning you've gained there, and how you can apply that as a physician. That can really enhance your application. So you do have a lot to offer the field, different perspectives, and different frames of reference. That can actually be a very strong merit for you. But you need to make sure to bring that out in the application and to really showcase those in terms of uniqueness and their benefit to the field.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is people, non-traditionals, you have certain kind of superpowers is because you've done things in your life, like had a job, family, organization stuff. I mean, for crying out loud, if you want to go volunteer for the Red Cross, they need you to be 25 in order to drive their car. So there. So there's a lot of things that you have the ability to do as a, 20 some odd year old than an 18-year-old. Can't rent a car as an 18-year-old. So that's just one thing.
Yeah, and you can really showcase the impact that you've made and the things that you've been involved in too, and the amount that you've learned. Obviously, you'll have a lot that you've learned over the years, and so that should be fairly easy to talk about. Maybe tough to kind of narrow it down to just the word count that you're given, but yeah.
So people want to know if you're UCLA alumni, do you have certain privileges? or better chances?
So I think I mentioned earlier that we don't consider those things in the admissions process. So sadly, even if you're a UCLA alumnus, you don't get any brownie points for that. It is equal consideration no matter where you've completed your studies.
Okay, another question I found was about somebody who is concerned about citizenship status when it comes to applying for MD or PhD programs. They mentioned that they have an undergrad and master's. They did their undergrad and master's in the US, but they're on an F1 visa. So would that affect their application for MD or PhD programs?
I can't really speak to PhD programs, but only MD related programs. I think it would depend probably on the school and the program. For our medical school, though, unfortunately, we aren't able to, offer eligibility to those that would require an F1 visa.
Someone asked, how were they able to gain shadowing experience without connections to physicians?
Yes. And that can be a challenge. We certainly understand that. Not everyone, has an opportunity to shadow a physician. It can be really tough. And even if you can't, you might consider other types of opportunities where you can gain patient care experience. We take a very broad view of patient care experience. Sometimes, applicants gain patient care experience from taking care of a grandparent that has a chronic illness, and really caring for them. Or maybe you've gone through your own chronic illness. And so that, having been a patient, you have gained a lot of experience there. Some folks consider volunteering at a local nursing home, and caring for people, playing the piano there, reading, playing chess with the folks there, caring for them, getting to know the nurses there and others is excellent patient care experience. Volunteering for organizations as well. So there's many, many different types of things that you can do. So I would say use your creativity in what you have around you to seek out those experiences. And really, again, with the mindset of what can you learn from them and how can you make a difference for people in need?
Yeah, we did a 2-hour session on this, and I think we'll do another one later this year. But there are simple things you could do. Go into a hospice and just volunteering, and basically a lot of times you don't need to have any kind of medical experience, but just means that you sit there while a caregiver goes and takes a shower, or um uh you know Miss Lopez said, go into a nursing home. um they I know somebody who was a dance she was a dancer, and she would go and coordinate dances for a lot of the folks. Obviously they weren't doing like hip hop, but some of the swing and other things that they were used to. So there's a lot of things you could do that you don't need to have that. Another thing is you could get a CPR and go to a hospital and be a patient escort, and or orderly they call it some places. And so there's a lot of things you could do, but it's not going to come to you. You're going to have to show initiative and go look for it and seek for it. There's also FHQs that you could do, and they're all over the country, and a lot of and if certainly if you speak a certain kind of language, language that is needed in those communities, and beyond Spanish. I mean, in the community that I'm living now, Ukrainian and Russian is actually a very common spoken language. So there's a lot of things you could do. But yeah, look at that session. There's a lot of ideas and things to look for.
There's a student who's interested in pursuing academic medicine. I'm not sure if you can provide some insight on this, but do you have any recommendations for students interested in academic medicine to learn more about the career other than doing research and TA?
Yeah. I mean, I would say there's always a good percentage of students who go through medical school and discover their love of academic medicine and decide to pursue that. If that's something you've identified already as something that you'd like to do, I would say if there's opportunities to seek out seek out ways to get involved in that, that would be fantastic. Or opportunities perhaps to explore further academic or educational experiences that you could talk about or relate to your goals. One thing to keep in mind is sometimes it's difficult to flesh out what you truly want to do until you've had the chance to try things. So exploring and trying as many things as possible. If you try something, that seems like it could be of interest to you and it just isn't, you don't have to keep up with it. You don't have to continue doing that. But the most important thing is finding the things that you do love and enjoy and doing more of them and gaining greater experience in that, learning from that, and so forth. And you'll do that in medical school as well. You'll have many opportunities to try different fields of medicine, different aspects of medicine, and find what you want to pursue down the road. You can always change your mind. And that's one thing that I would give some thought to now, too. As you go through these years, if there are things that really resonate with you, again, like academic medicine, maybe set that as your long-term goal, if that's what you see yourself doing and you really want to do. And start moving now toward your goal. What are things you can do to get yourself closer to your goal? Even before you go to medical school, uh, yeah, is there a medical school where you could volunteer at? Are there other types of opportunities you could do an internship or other things too? So start pursuing those now because you can really try to hone your career and identify what you need to do, the more knowledge that you have.
There was also a couple people concerned if the institution where they completed pre-med requirements or did their undergrad, and are those if it's at a college or university, does that affect their application to med school at all?
Let's see. I'm not sure if I'm understanding that question fully.
I can
think
repeat it. I think I saw a question where this person was asking if the institution where they completed their undergrad in, if whether it's a college or university, does that impact their admissions to med school? Like, do you look at applications differently based off of that?
Got it. Okay. No, we don't, so that's not a part of the process to factor that in. I think that you certainly need to have completed your bachelor's, obviously, and need to have a really solid foundation in STEM classes as well as humanities and demonstrate that you're able to perform very well academically in them. But you can do that at any kind of institution, any kind of accredited university. So, yeah.
Does UCLA have any post-bac programs? And if so, what is that process like? How competitive is it? Do they support applicants from underrepresented programs, underrepresented communities?
It's an excellent question. There are some programs like that for folks that are UCLA students. But for those that are non-UCLA students, we do not. However, you would find many programs like that in doing a search for them, and you can consider that. Folks often consider whether to kind of do it on their own, taking courses and attending sessions like this, and getting involved with different organizations, or attending a formalized post-bac. But either way, you can be successful, and that can really help you to move forward.
Do you prioritize students who complete med school prereqs at a four-year university versus students who complete them at a community college?
No, so there isn't consideration necessarily given for that either. A lot of students these days go to community college and then transfer to a four-year institution and then move forward with their careers, go to medical school. It's becoming increasingly common across the nation. So it's definitely an excellent path if that's the path that you're on and you want to take. So yeah, either way is just fine.
Are there any volunteer opportunities or activities or just any extracurriculars in general that would make a community college stand out?
Does that mean the community college itself, or the things that the student is involved in?
I think they are trying to stand out among other med school applicants.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Yeah, if you are going to community college, the advice really would be the same. So you want to, right now, you're probably in your early years of college as a community college student. So you want to take the time now to, number one, explore lots of opportunities. Explore clubs that are available at your community college. Talk to others, talk to your professors there. Find opportunities for clinical experience or patient care experience and exposure. Find opportunities to contribute in community service, volunteer work, or advocacy. Focus on your courses and grades, and really making sure you're performing very well academically. And if there are research opportunities available at your community college, getting involved in those. But you can also find opportunities nationally and perhaps in your area to get involved with internships, research studies, and other types of things. It'll take some work to look that up online. But you can find and apply to those things as well. So that would be my advice for someone in community college, but also those in a four-year institution.
Yeah, I just dropped a bunch of summer programs at UCLA that you could apply to as a community college student, and the SHIP, the pre-med summer.
Yeah, the SHPEP, the Summer Health Education
The SHIP,
Preparation
they call it
Program,
SHPEP,
yes,
SHPEP, sorry.
is a national program. There are 12 sites across the country that offer that program. It is for community college students, or those in their kind of first and second year of a four-year institution, so freshmen and sophomores. It's a free program offered in the summer, and the application opens nationally on November 1st.
And closes, I think, January, right?
Closes at the end of January.
Yeah.
And then
Sorry, February 2nd.
February 2nd, there we go. And then there's also the UCLA program, which is for folks who are in their third and fourth year or recent graduates from the bachelor's program. That is also a free summer program, 6 weeks long, which includes full MCAT prep and everything like that. Again, free, which you can take part in as well. That application opens December 1st.
Yeah, and next month we're doing a whole 2 sessions on summer programs that are open for community college students, and so show up, and we post a lot of them on our social media as well.
Yeah. And then we do also offer a reapplicant program, again, completely free for participants. It's an 11-month program. And so that application will open in the new year and will close in May. So there's some time there, but for those of you that are, looking to reapply, that's also an option for you.
There was a question regarding med school interviews at UCLA. This individual asks, what does UCLA look for during interviews and how are they conducted?
Yeah. So at our school, we have 3 program tracks. So we have a traditional MD program that offers, so the interviews are basically 2 faculty conducted interviews that applicants would do. We also have a prime leadership and advocacy program where you also earn an MD, but also another master's degree, so kind of combined MD master's degree program that offers multiple mini interviews instead of the traditional interviews. And then we have a medical scientist training program, which is an MD PhD program that offers also faculty interviews. So some different formats there. But basically, the interviews themselves are really, so you complete your application, you submit your letters of recommendation, you do a lot of writing, your personal statement, all of your experiences and those types of things. And there's some inputs again from your letters of recommendation. But the interview is your chance to really showcase yourself and even things that maybe you didn't have the chance to fully flesh out in your application because, again, those space limits, you can only put so much. And so it's your chance to really demonstrate your personality, your maturity, again, those competencies that I talked about in my presentation, and showcase who you are, and your interests and involvements and preparedness. So, so that's really the focus. It is the one time in the application process where you get to meet with people in person and talk about who you are, what you're interested in, and what you're looking to do.
As a follow-up to that question, when do the bulk of UCLA interviews occur, and has UCLA already started sending interview invites for the cycle?
Yeah, so the bulk of interviews tends to occur in the fall, but also into the new year as well. So I would say, interviews tend to run from September all the way through February, something like that. It does vary each year depending on the number of applications. But yes, we already are underway with interview processes.
Does applying later in the cycle put an applicant at a disadvantage at all?
So at our school, we have a rolling admissions process. And what that means is you can apply at any time, in the process before the deadline though. And the deadline is October 1st. And you'll receive equal consideration. So the process begins, when we begin receiving applications, and it just continues through. So yeah, so that it isn't a disadvantage to apply at the end. I would just say to not apply at the very, very end, because any kind of system technical glitch could mean that, it prevents you from submitting your application. So just be aware of that.
For those who aren't on MSAR, does UCLA accept update letters, slash letters of interest? And what are the particulars about when those are allowed to be sent and what information can be put on those update letters?
Yeah. Many medical schools do accept those letters, but our school at UCLA does not. So we consider the application complete at the time of submission. Um, Applicants can submit things if they want to, but it may not be reviewed. And it is complex for us with a rolling admissions process to ensure that documents can be included even later in the cycle. So so we consider applications complete at time of submission.
And then would undergoing a master's program or conducting a postbac have different strengths? And then which admission would be seen as a stronger application?
Yeah. So in that question, I'm hearing maybe the question, should I do a post-bac or should I do a master's? I know that's a tough one. And really the answer to that will lie with you as an applicant. You'll want to consider a few things. First of all, you may look back at the academics that you've already completed and see that, well, gee, you've already got an amazingly strong GPA, and those types of things. So in that case, additional academic work in a post-bac may not add anything to your application. Or you may have taken a lot of units and maybe didn't perform as well in your bachelor's as you had wanted, but adding a few additional courses may not really move the needle on your GPA too much. So in some of those cases, a master's degree can be beneficial. It is a separate degree. Different schools will look at it in different ways. For our school, if you complete a master's degree, it would be looked at separately, of course, from your bachelor's. And in some cases, maybe if you haven't performed to the level you wanted in your bachelor's, but you take a very related master's degree and do very well in it, in our case, that would demonstrate that you're able to handle the academic rigor, and would certainly make a difference for us. So I think you need to take a look at the reasons why you would want to do these various things and see if that in the end would be a good decision for you or not.
If a student doesn't make it through the primary screening and that application process that you laid out earlier, are they ever reassessed from that? Are they are they sent a rejection letter at any point? Or when will they be told if at any case they don't pass that primary screening?
Yeah, so the primary screening, one would assume that it would proceed in the order that applications are received, but it doesn't necessarily, because applications complete at different times, and schools receive applications at different times from the national system. So again, all the applications go into the national system with AMCAS, and AMCAS takes time to verify applications, make sure pieces have come in and all of that before they transmit it to schools. So it is difficult as an applicant to know sort of where your application may be at any stage. For our part, with the initial screening that we do, it is, once the initial screening is complete, if the applicant is not selected to move forward to receive a secondary, an invitation to complete a secondary application, then it wouldn't be re-reviewed after that. But again, it's difficult to know if that's occurred or not with your application. You can't necessarily go by the time when you submitted it.
For our high school students, they want to know if they can include shadow, research, and service done during high school in their med school application.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're in high school, those types of experiences are truly, they're phenomenal. And if you can do those things, definitely pursue them. You're going to learn a lot from them. Medical schools, and certainly our medical school, tend to consider experiences from after high school, from your college years and beyond, rather than things you've done in high school. It's only in the case that if you've been involved in something since high school and continued in years beyond high school that it would be considered. So, and we realize that many high school students just don't have access to the types of experiences that college students would have. I mean, certainly you have to be at least 16 or 18 years old sometimes to get involved in things. So, yeah. So I would say that preparation in high school is excellent, and you will learn a great deal from it. And so I would do as much as you can in high school, but it may not then be something that you can put on your medical school application. But you could certainly put it on your application to college.
Another student asked, or is like inquiring about doing having experiences in like different specialties. For example, they did cancer research and anesthesiology internship, and they're asking seen as a weakness to have experiences in different fields, or would it be valuable as long as they can explain what they've learned from each?
Yeah, yeah. So it would definitely be valuable. I think what you want to consider is, and it will be different for everyone, the depth of learning that you can get, but you also want to have a little bit, or kind of be well-rounded as well. So, if you're able to explore different fields of medicine like that, you have more to learn and more to speak about, later. And it's easier for you to identify what you enjoy the most. Now, some folks, maybe they put a lot of time into sports, for example. Maybe they love soccer and they're devoting a lot of hours to soccer in addition to the other things that they're doing. That can demonstrate that you're well-rounded because you're not just pursuing one thing, but you have a lot of diverse interests, which can add merit to your application. And if you talk about it in terms of what you're learning, how you're growing because of it, again, with the soccer analogy, maybe you learned how to be a great team player. You learned how to overcome adversity and various things like that because of your involvement. So if you have opportunities in anesthesiology and in a different area, that's excellent, and you can speak about it too.
There are a couple questions asking about like grades. Like let's say a student didn't do as well in like an organic chemistry class, but then they had better grades in other classes, or if they showed like an upward trend through their undergraduate career. Can you talk about how that's viewed by an admissions committee?
Yeah, definitely the upward trend. can actually be a merit in some cases, because it can show how, maybe you struggled in your first year and then came back, learn new study skills and really attack that problem and, move forward to do very well later. It can show kind of your resilience. And you could talk about that a bit, in your application. So that can be a merit if you explain and talk about that. If you, I often hear, oh, gee, there's this class, I just did terrible in this one class. And does that mean I have to give up my dream of ever going to medical school? And no, you should never give up your dream. And, one class or two classes, I wouldn't worry about that. What you want to do is demonstrate your learning from that. Show how the next classes that you took, you did very well. Not everyone can get an A in everything. And that's okay. You don't have to have a 4.0.
How do you view taking a gap year, such as gaining further experience, and impact in service?
Yeah. So a lot of people are taking gap years these days. I think what I've seen most recently nationally is about 50% of applicants to medical school or more are taking some time after their bachelor's to work, to do many other things, to prepare, and so I think taking a gap year can enhance your application in that you can speak about the things that you're doing beyond your bachelor's, and maybe you have additional opportunities to take on things in that time frame. All in all, you want to apply to medical school when you feel ready. And so sometimes it can be daunting for people in their bachelor's program to try to juggle all of these things at once, including applying to medical school on top of everything they have to do in their bachelor's program. So if that just seems too challenging for you, don't worry. Take your time and prepare and apply to medical school when you're ready to do it and when you feel comfortable to do it. And always remember, sometimes you can feel rushed, but better not to. Medicine is, and going into the field is a life calling. It's not just a job or a career. And so it takes your lifelong dedication to the field. And so even if you enter it a year or two later, not to worry at all.
And then there was a follow-up question regarding gap year students. Are there any specific programs at UCLA or David Geffen School of Medicine to help them apply to the upcoming cycle?
Yeah. Well, I would say for those that are looking to apply soon, the admissions office has virtual office hours every week. Wednesdays at 11 a.m. on Zoom. So you can join the admissions team, pick a week or come every week, whatever you'd like to do. And you can sit and listen to others' questions, or you can pose questions of your own. But it can be a great way to get much more familiar with the requirements and get a much deeper understanding before you begin preparing your application. To find that, you can go to the David Geffen School of Medicine admissions website. Thank you.
For the next question, what do admissions officers look for in a personal statement? What's considered quality writing for like that why medicine statement?
Yeah, yeah. And again, that's something that I feel is so important. So, really taking your time to develop that why medicine statement, making sure it's clear, it's concise, and it kind of answers your question for yourself, even why you want to pursue this field. Um, in the personal statement, definitely you want to explain why you want to go into the field, um, uh, what you've done because of your desire to go into the field, the types of things that you've been involved in, what you've learned, that will, the things that you've learned that prepare you to be an excellent medical student and to succeed in that. And maybe at the end, kind of, what you see for yourself in moving forward with the field. So that personal statement is your main opportunity to really showcase what makes you who you are today, and how that prepares you excellently for becoming a physician, and in our case, an outstanding physician, and something more for the future.
What are some financial resources that David Geffen will offer and provide to students, especially those students who are worried about the threat to financial aid and the student loan caps?
Yeah, yeah. I know there's a lot of changes taking place these days. And so it can be difficult to navigate. And there's still more information that we're waiting on as well from the Department of Education in terms of the nuances of how those things will be applied, those new rules. Medical schools are still as committed as ever to making sure that students can achieve their dreams of going to medical school and having the funding needed to finish medical school and move forward into residency and eventually into their careers. So medical schools will work with you, and at our school, we have dedicated financial aid counselors. So every student has a financial aid counselor that works with them the entire time they're in medical school. The counselor looks for scholarship opportunities for them, that they may qualify for, keeping students up to date on that, meeting with them at least annually to kind of go over budgets, talk about new funding or financing opportunities, loans, whatever it may take. Keep in mind that and medical school can be expensive, but in the end, going into the field of medicine, you will earn enough to pay off loans that you take. So I wouldn't let that stop you from going to the field. And I would, work closely with your medical school financial aid office and team to identify ways to make it a reality for you, and they will. And I am hopeful that there will be more opportunities as we go through this academic year here, before some of those things take effect.
Another question is, what are aspects of recommendation letters, as a part of the application? Like, what are aspects of a recommendation letter would help support an application or like uplift one compared to others, I guess?
Yeah, yeah. Some people have asked me, they said, well, gee, have you ever gotten like a bad letter of recommendation, right? Like they're always good. So how do you tell from one from another? in the end, as an applicant, you want to pull out all the stops when you apply to medical school. Go the extra mile on every piece of your application, from MCAT studying, your grades, your experiences, personal statement, everything. So when it comes to your letters of recommendation, foster that relationship. Start today, foster that relationship with your faculty, with, your research lab director, with others that you're involved in who could later provide letters of recommendation for you. Get to know them, and share with them about yourself as well. And in the end, when you go to ask for that letter of recommendation, go meet with them in person if you can, or give them a phone call, or take them to coffee. Foster that relationship, keep that relationship even after. These folks will become your mentors, if they haven't already, but really seek those kinds of deeper relationships with them. Because in the end, the letters of recommendation, again, as I had mentioned before, they provide outside validation for the things that you're talking about in your application. Otherwise, the application is just, well, what you're saying about yourself and what you did. But the letters of recommendation can say the same thing. They can say, hey, this applicant did all of these things. And guess what? They did this and that too, which may even be things that you didn't get the chance to speak about in as much detail in your application. So they can really bolster your application and make it very strong. And there are some folks who are excellent letter of recommendation writers and some folks who are not. But admissions committees are used to seeing those, and they know, even if someone's maybe just not a great letter writer, they can kind of pick it apart and they can get the same type of value out of it regardless.
Do you have?
Here's a bad
Oh, go
letter
ahead.
recommendation. I had Kristen in my class of 700, and she scored a 92% in the class. That's not a really good one. The good one is, hey, I knew her, got to know her, she was doing X, Y, Z. So that's a good example.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe got to know the student so well that asked the student to come and, be a teaching assistant in the
Right.
next semester for the class and this and that. So yeah.
Are there any major red flags that students should avoid in an application?
Yes, not having a clear and concise why medicine statement. That's always my number one. But also considering, right, taking a growth and learning approach to how you're talking about your experiences. And making sure you can talk about some diverse experiences. If you have the same single activity that you did, maybe all 4 years you were in school, that's great. And you probably achieved a lot of depth in that and made a lot of contributions. But it would be helpful to do some other things too, so that you have more learning that you can share and talk about in other types of activities as well. So having kind of that well-rounded, well-balanced approach.
Alrighty, so it's 6:30 p.m. One last question, a good one. Kirsten, you could pick one, and we'll let Ms. Lopez know, because we've answered 92 questions and there's 102 to still go. So I think we don't want to be here till 10 p.m. So
Ooh, this is gonna be a tricky one because we have so many questions left over here. I'll choose one about, let's see. Does age play a factor in medicine at all? Like students who are applying like like who are young or applying who are older? Does age play a factor at all in admissions decisions?
It does not. It does not. So that's not something that's looked at all. And there are folks, of really diverse ages that are in medical school and succeed in medical school. On the one hand, there are some folks who have had whole careers doing something else and then, eventually decide to pursue their dream to become a physician. And there are others who, on the other side of the spectrum, who have had incredible experiences too, but, much younger coming into the field.
Well, thank you so much for being able to make our session today, Ms. Lopez. We had a great time hosting you, and we had probably, I think, around 200 participants come in to join us today. So we had a great time. Thank you so much for making it today.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed it. And thank you all. And I really wish everyone that's on this call today incredible success, and just keep focused on your learning in everything that you're doing. That'll get you there.